Okay, here's me reading the article that I mentioned in my Facebook post about it's about telling ourselves stories. So bear with me. Sometimes it can feel like you are caught in a firestorm of overwhelming and uncontrollable thought. Concerns, doubts, what ifs, and yes buts swirl through your mind, pulling you into the fierce grip of anxiety. For the sake of simplicity, let's call these swirling thoughts stories. If you pay close enough attention to your mind, you will see that it is a relentless and compelling storyteller. Sometimes it is difficult to know what is real and what is not. When your mind is bombarding you with images and thoughts that create anxiety, it can be tempting to analyze your stories in order to disprove them, to find counterarguments and new evidence to give yourself a reprieve. But if you do, you may find yourself slowly or quickly entering a war with your obstinate and frenetic mind, bargaining with new what ifs and yes buts, new counter images, and what seems like an endless and futile ping pong match. And no matter how many balls of impressive reason and rationale you hit back, and how well you strike them, your resolute and slippery mind only seems to one-up you with a more compelling argument. Even seeking help from others can be a subtle means of staying in the trenches of battle. We often seek counsel from family or friends, hoping they collude with our counter-argument strategies and validate the stories we want to be true. And if they don't tell us what we want to hear, we get frustrated and discount their viewpoints, and the firestorm rages on. With enough pain and perhaps self-awareness, we soon discover that we cannot win the fight. More stories are never enough. Stories only lead to more stories, a bottomless pit, a thick fog that we get lost and overwhelmed in. The only way out is to give up story making altogether and to sink into reality. It has been said that the truth shall set you free. This has been my experience. Truth has certainly helped me move beyond the frenetic overwhelm of my mind's stories, the ones that seem so convincing, so real. Truth continues to be the doorway out, leading to greater peace of mind and clarity. When swirling stories rampage through your mind, ask yourself, what is true for me right now? For instance, what may be true for you is that you are confused, or you are struggling to trust, or are afraid, or you feel powerless to your stories. Sink into that for a moment. Let it be enough. A while ago, I was struggling for many days with the fact that I might need to move. My lovely partner told me that she could not foresee herself living in Vancouver much longer because she could not handle the busyness and noise, and because she felt healthier in small towns. This possibility plagued me because I love my home and community so much. I was suddenly at the whim of an onslaught of overwhelming images and stories stampeding through my mind, not being able to find a new community and place that feels like home, leaving behind the people and neighborhood nooks I adore, the added travel on top of what is already a very busy travel schedule, and not being happy in general. My stomach felt tight, and I gave myself a headache at the thought of all of this. Yes, quite dramatic. Finally, while lying in bed, I asked myself, what is true for me right now? In other words, what do I really know for certain? I could not, in all sincerity, be certain that I would be moving, because even my partner was not 100% clear, and even if I could, moving was not here and now in my experience. It was still in the future. Liberation always happens in the now, where truth is found. Our stories, on the other hand, always exist in the past and the future. So what could I vouch for in that moment? I realized I was confused and scared. That was the true heart of the matter. That is what was real, 100 times more real than the stories stampeding through my mind. When I let myself sink into that truth, I suddenly felt calm, a calm clarity that astounded me and that lasted for days. It was as though the concern had never existed. It was only after a few days that the fear-based stories reappeared in my mind, but this time their teeth were less sharp and their bite less ferocious. They had far less intensity and didn't hang around for nearly as long. And for the most part, it remained that way. There was something about the truth of the moment that seemed to give no ground for my anxious future-based stories to stand on. Truth was much more powerful than my fears. It begs the question, what is the cause of our suffering? What is out there and what is in our mind? In many ways, our bodies always inform us how far we are from truth. There's a calming effect in our mind and body when we allow ourselves to rest in the obvious, not the ambiguous. Facts are liberating. Stories are full of uncertainty and can lead to more uncertainty. But truth is liberating because we bypass what cannot be substantiated and sink into what we know is real. This is our first act of self-compassion, acknowledging the absolute truth of our experience. Stories dissolve in the face of truth. They have nowhere to hide. While sinking into truth may not change the external circumstance, it can change how we view and respond to our situation. With calmness, we have greater clarity, supporting healthier and more productive decision-making. We react less and respond more. That is our responsibility, our ability to respond. Sinking into truth may not always lead to feeling calm, at least not right away. By accepting what is real for you, that you are confused, unable to trust, afraid, or powerless to your thoughts, for instance, your body may speak to you through strong emotions of sadness, anger, or fear. Deep swells of feelings may arise out of nowhere, filling your chest and throat, offering themselves to you to be with and embrace. Try not to be afraid of them or pathologize yourself thinking there's something wrong with you. There is not. You're simply being human. Welcome them into your arms to rest as you would a small, fearful child. Resting in the somatic realm is the second act of self-compassion. It is giving yourself over to your body's expression of truth, to what is real on the somatic level. It is letting yourself feel what wants to be felt. That's always what I've said is the primary way to start healing is you got to feel your feelings. Much of our story making is in fact an attempt to circumvent truth and our body's expression of it. We've been taught on some level to avoid both, to suck it up, be strong, get on with life, to disregard what is real in our hearts and to live more in our heads. We have not been supported to understand how the mind works, and specifically how it will do its best to distract us from what is true, what wants to be felt. As a result, we've become walking storytellers with minds full of compelling narratives that interest us, scare us to death, and which we unwittingly identify with and allow to run our lives. We manage by checking Facebook, watching TV, having another drink, smoke, or toke, or through gossip and collusion. But all the while, we are simply managing our inner world, coping by dancing around what we are afraid to face and be with. So much of what we call reality, what we focus on day to day, is simply our many convenient and imaginative means of distracting ourselves from what is true, what is real within. It is our coping mechanism. It is an expression of our stories played out externally. Whether through pushing ourselves externally or pushing down what wants to be felt, a great deal of vital energy is used to deny our truth and our body, more than we can possibly imagine. It is where so much of our disease comes from. Our health and well-being can be dramatically improved and our healthcare costs dramatically decreased if we simply and kindly meet ourselves where we authentically are. If we just say yes to what is real and not run from it. If we say yes to ourselves, perhaps for the first time. Yes, I am afraid. I am sad. I am confused. I am lost. I don't know what to do. I'm powerless. I need help. Yes to all this and make this very human state okay if we just sink into our truth and rest into an honest somatic response by feeling what wants to be felt underneath the stories. Indeed, we can restore our vital energy and health in this tremendous act of self-compassion. The 6 steps are an act of surrender, of giving up control and ending the battle. The moment you disengage from the stories and focus on truth, you grant power back to yourself and away from your controlling mind. Your mind will not like it. It will try to pull you back into the drama with yet another counterpunch. Know that it is simply protecting its need to stay in control by keeping you away from uncertainty and present moment truth. Step 1, notice when you feel anxious, specifically when overwhelmed by narratives in your mind. Pay close attention to the stories you're making up and your impulse to add more stories, counter arguments, evidence, etc. to engage in a battle and hit another ping pong ball. Pause. Take a few deep breaths, which will help to slow down your fight, flight, freeze mind. Focus on the space in the center of your chest, your heart center, as you breathe slowly and deeply. Ask yourself, what is true for me right now? If the answer is, I don't know, that is your truth. Sink into that. Let that be enough. If your truth is, I feel powerless to my thoughts, again, let that be enough. That is what is real for you. You don't need to change it. Just simply accept it. Now, if you feel inclined, see if you can sink even further down to sense if there is a deeper truth. Perhaps underneath your sense of not knowing or powerlessness is fear or anger. You sink further by asking, what is true beneath my feeling of powerlessness? If the answer is anger, then ask, what is true beneath my feeling of anger? Keep asking until you get to the core truth when you cannot sink any further down. Here, the somatic realm may begin to stir and speak to you. Feel any feelings that arise as you sink more deeply into your truth. Let them reveal themselves as they may. Try not to resist them nor judge yourself for feeling them. They are not bad or wrong. Allow them to move through your body. Emotion is meant to move. That is its natural state. Hence, energy and motion equals emotion. Let the energy circulate through your body, setting itself free. This might feel foreign at first, but trust that it is quite normal. It was when you were a young child, so why should it be any different now? Seek extra help from a professional if your feelings seem too much to handle on your own. I've sought help through many professionals, including therapists, life coaches, healers, and more. It's okay to ask for help and to know that you cannot do it on your own. It should also be said that these 6 steps may not be enough to give you the peace of mind you seek. Sometimes the only thing that helps the storm pass is time. But at minimum, you can accept that you cannot control your thoughts, that they won't go away, and that you feel overwhelmed by them. For now, try to let that be enough, despite the monkey mind continuing to swing from one dendrite to another. In just accepting that you feel powerless, you may experience some relief. Acceptance is key. This was an article written in a magazine called Pathways to Family Wellness, and it is by Vince Gauman, who is an internationally recognized healer, speaker, and author. His numerous healing modalities include somatic therapy, and for those who don't know what somatic therapy is, it's a practice of healing emotional trauma through getting in touch with your body and your experience of being a body, having a body, because so many people who've experienced trauma dissociate from their body. So they're not in touch with their body, not very self-aware, always kind of feeling like they're floating outside their body. Nothing ever feels quite real or tangible. It's a very common thing for trauma survivors. And breath work is another one of this guy's specialties, and I'm a huge advocate for breath work for so many physical, mental, psychological reasons overall. I really do think it's part of the key to healing. So anyway, thank you for listening. That is the article, and it just resonate so much with it. My biggest issue currently and in the past has been believing the stories that I tell myself. And the best thing that I could hear in so many ways right now, if somebody could get inside my head, is just, you're wrong about that. You're wrong about that. You're wrong about that. I would very much love to hear that I'm wrong. So anyway, that's where I'm at. Tough place, but we'll get through it. Acceptance is always key. Sitting with it is always key. It's messy, but it's key.